Yeah, beautiful.
Ooh.
Good morning, everybody. It's Moose and Keith with you right here on this Tuesday on the Better Sports Network. Marc, Malusis, Keith, Irizarry. We got you for the next couple of hours, right up until high noon. Good morning, Keith. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, man. Were you golfing yesterday? Is that what I saw?
Yeah, at the David Cohen charity golf event. Yeah,
Yeah. How'd you do?
it was fun. It was good. We had a good day. It was fun.
You're like an above average golfer. Am I correct?
I'm okay. I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm not good, but
Okay.
It's just a matter of having a good time with it.
And I
I don't
mean,
play consistently enough to be good at it.
all right. So let's peel back curtain for a second. I think he's a mutual friend of ours. Mike Babchick over at SiriusXM posted a bunch of videos of him hitting game-winning putts and stuff like that. Were you there for any of it? And
I
if
was
so,
not.
okay, good. Because I'm thinking
I saw a Babchick on the course. He was looking for the drink cart, but I did
yeah.
not see. I was not in his group. No,
All right, because I wanted to know if any of that
there
was
was like
true.
200 golfers. There was
All
like,
right.
yeah. So Babchick was there. I saw him. JJ. Who else? I was
Keith
chatting with Todd
McPherson.
Zeal, chatting with Flash, John Flaherty, Sweeney Murdy, the legendary Bill Daughtry. Saw Carl
Oh,
Nelson,
dude, can I
Rick Cerrone. Yeah.
Bill Daughtry. So when I first worked at ESPN Radio, and listen, everybody that's watching right now, we're going to get into a boatload of stuff
Yeah.
today. But when I first started working at ESPN Radio, I was young and I was just doing the updates. He could not have been the nicer person to me. He would bring me in, like I would do the updates, and my only job was to do like a 45-second update once an hour. That was it. So I literally am sitting there for a 4-hour show, just sitting there. And I don't know, maybe it was like an awkward thing for him because I was supposed to sit there. He said, Keith, that what I'd like you to do is I want you to be part of the conversations. He would bring me in multiple times during the show. Like he definitely helped my career because he allowed me to showcase a little bit of my personality as opposed to just, and the New York Mets win blah, blah, blah. And the Yankees, they fall to, 4-2 on the season, like whatever. Like he was such a good dude. I love Bill Daughtry.
Yeah, good guy. So yeah, it was for Ed Lucas, who passed away a couple years ago, and his charity. It's just a good event. They do it every single year, same golf club, and it's really a fun time and good to be a part of it. So I was happy
Love
to be
it.
a part of it
Love
yesterday. I think it's like the maybe third straight year that I've done it. So good times all the way around. But you've got us here for the next couple hours, right up until high noon, and got Warren Sharp's going to join us a little bit later on in the program. Looking forward to that conversation. We've got some picks coming your way later on the program, but we kick it off with the NFL as Jets training camp has gotten going. The other camps are getting set to open up this week around the National Football League, and big news coming out of Giant camp as they get set to open it up. And first practice is tomorrow, and Daboll and Shane are going to meet with the media tomorrow, as will the players post-practice. Is that Saquon Barkley and the Giants, they've got a new deal. It's a one-year contract. He was tagged for $10.1 million. There's the Giants can tag him after this season comes to an end as well. If he has another bang-up season and stays healthy over the course of 17 games during the course of the regular season, it's for, the guaranteed $10.1 million. And he's got about, I think, right around $903,000 that he could earn in bonuses as well. That could bring it up to about $11 million. So even despite going on the Money Matters podcast last week and talking about the fact of potentially holding out, Saquon Barkley was never going to do that. I mean, and anyone that bought into that and anyone that bought into the idea of Saquon turning his back on his team, that was just never going to happen. He didn't have any leverage. This is the game that we play in the National Football League. Franchise tags can be used. They can be used in multiple years. So teams can maintain control of players. We can get into the running back devaluation. But, and I never thought it was going to be that big of a headache. I didn't necessarily know if he was going to be there the first day of training camp. I said on the radio and TV last week that I thought Saquon Barkley was definitively going to be there week one, ready to go against the Dallas Cowboys. He keeps himself in impeccable shape. And here we go. Wake up on this Tuesday morning, right around 8:30 this morning. The news gets broken by, I believe, Adam Schefter, Rappaport, the crew that covers the National Football League. They had it that Barkley and the Giants have come to terms on a 1-year deal. So great news for the Giants. It's not the deal Saquon wanted. But if he goes out there and plays the level that he's capable of playing at, everything will take care of itself.
You've been around Saquon a lot more than I have. You cover that team a little bit closer than I do. Outsider looking in, I'm with you. I never believed that Saquon was going to hold out. I never believed that he was going to Le'Veon Bell this and sit out an entire season. I don't believe, and I could be wrong, but I never felt that was the way he was put together. And the only way some of that stuff changes, Moose, is when you get the wrong people in your ear. And you tell me, does it appear that Saquon has the wrong people in his ear? Because I don't think that he does.
No, I don't. I just also, I don't, I think Saquon's his own man.
Right.
Like, I don't think he's going to be influenced by anybody that's in his inner circle or part of his, as he talked about last week, that are part of his team. Like, Saquon's going to make decisions that, yeah, I would put it to you this way. I just think it would be the completely opposite of who Saquon Barkley is as an individual. I mean, he was the cleanest prospect in the draft. That's why the Giants drafted him second overall. We can get into the nonsensical conversation about the devaluation of running backs that, continues to happen around the National Football League. But I would say this, Keith, is I don't think he has bad people around him, because I don't think he knows how to get, and trust bad people. I think he's just genuinely a good human being. Like, and he's real, and he's a really good guy, and there's nothing not to like about him. What you see is what you get. Everybody that tells you that Saquon Barkley is a good guy, he's better than that. And I think that's why the Giants, and he's a remarkable leader on that team as well. So I don't think it's in his persona to get influenced or be around bad people. Because I think if there are bad people around him, he's no longer friends, or they're no longer part of his inner circle.
Yeah. And that was kind of my point with it, is that I truly believe that he is going to surround himself with the right people. Listen, this is not a slam dunk win for Saquon. Like, if you were scoring this, it's a win for the Giants. It's not a loss for Saquon, because listen, $11 million is still $11 million. Like, and I know that, I believe it was last week that I know you and I talk off the air too. So sometimes I forget what we say off the air, what we say on the air with each other. It stinks that running backs don't get valued the way they believe they should. Okay. If we just use the word value, the quarterback and a lot of the other skills positions, wide receivers and, corners and defensive linemen and stuff like that, like, they all tend to make more money in the long run and immediately too, right? That being said, $11 million is still more money than many people will ever see in their lifetimes. And for Saquon Barkley, the win in this is that he's playing the sport he loves. He's playing for the team that we all believe he wants to play for and with and loves. And listen, he'll make $11 million. As long as he doesn't get injured, he's going to make more money next year as well. Like, it's going to continue escalating. You'll continue making money. He's never going to make the $30-40 million per year that the quarterbacks like Daniel Jones, who's not as talented as Saquon, is going to make. But that is unfortunately the name of this business.
Yeah, but I mean, you continue to see stuff about, now people and people just can't help themselves. Maybe it's a case that they just don't want to be wrong, but everybody loves to bring Jones into the conversation. I saw a tweet this morning from RG3, in essence, saying that, Daniel Jones' success was built on the back of Saquon Barkley, and he's going to make, I don't know, in the neighborhood of $29 million more or something like that, 20, whatever the number is, significantly more money this year. Well, I mean, we're in that season once again of the non-believers of Daniel Jones want to continue to non-believe in Daniel Jones, even though the job and the situation they did last year. And I'll answer it to you this way: no matter what I, former players, think about Daniel Jones as a quarterback, and do you think Joe Shane and Brian Daboll are good at what they do?
I do.
Yeah, you do, and so do I. So that duo believes that Daniel Jones is a franchise quarterback.
Yeah.
I mean, that duo saw him hands-on a year ago and believe that Daniel Jones is a guy that is a franchise quarterback capable of leading the Giants, doing everything that they need from that position. It might look a little bit different, might feel a little bit different, but he's capable and athletically gifted enough to go out there and play the position. And last year was a year in which he was actually well coached. It wasn't Joe Judge being the head coach, right? It was Brian Daboll and We had a Mike Kafka coming over from Kansas City, and a good coaching staff, and yes, the guy stayed healthy and he had playmakers. Tell me a quarterback out there that doesn't have playmakers. Patrick Mahomes. Is Patrick Mahomes great at what he does, or is he great because he had Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill over those years? No, I mean, tell me. So, you need talented players around you. So the whole idea now is that we're going to rip Daniel Jones because, he's making more money. We all understand the importance. Tell me where the Giants would be if I stuck Tyrod Taylor or unnamed quarterback in, and they had Saquon Barkley. What do you think the Giants' win total would be this year? I mean, the Giants' win total this year would probably be 4 or 5. I mean, that's it. So we know the quarterback's the most important position. They're going to get paid the most money. The Giants believe they have found one in Daniel Jones. Can we please stop ripping on Daniel Jones because Saquon Barkley didn't get paid? One has nothing to do with the other. And people hate admitting when they are wrong. And if you were ripping Daniel Jones and said he stinks, by the way, Keith, was it not a year ago at this time? A little bit more than that because we weren't on the air at this time, right? But it was probably late August. We were talking about when we started Better Sports Network and you and I started working together. There weren't many people on the Saquon Barkley bandwagon. They all thought he was shot. Nope. I didn't know it. They all thought he was done. Well, I mean, I don't want to pat myself on the back, but I was basically one of the only guys telling you, I think Saquon Barkley's going to have a huge bounce-back season. I would draft him in fantasy football, and if you could get him in the second or third round, I would take him because I think he's going to have a huge year, and I think he is healthy. And now all of a sudden, Saquon Barkley can do no wrong. A year ago, people were running from Saquon Barkley.
Well, do you remember you and I sitting on, and listen, you were higher on Barkley than I was. Not that I wasn't high on Barkley, but you knew in your heart of hearts that this was going to work. Do you remember us sitting here talking about the over-under on rushing yards? And we literally I remember the 2 plays. It was Justin Fields over on the rushing yards and Saquon Barkley over on the rushing yards. We both told everyone, run to your apps and find the best price and go for both of those. And both of those hit nice and easy. Yeah. Saquon Barkley, when you just talk purely talent, is Christian McCaffrey the only running back in the NFL that you would say is more talented than Saquon Barkley? I think that might be a fair thing, right?
Yeah, I mean, ATN hasn't done enough down in Jacksonville, but I think Travis is, and he hasn't also physically holding up. They might get diminished workload down there in Jacksonville. That's been an issue when you're looking at fantasy football this year. Yeah, Saquon's really, really gifted.
There's a lot of good running backs. Yes, we know that. But
they're for sure. But if you're looking at the pure dual threat catching 3-down running back, Barkley's got to improve.
Him, McCaffrey, and Eckler.
Yeah, right? and honestly, I think as a pure runner, Barkley and McCaffrey are better than Eckler.
Agreed. Eckler, I mean,
I think Eckler's an unbelievable receiver, and Herbert catching, and he can have games in which he has 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 catches, whatever it might be. Like, he's an unbelievable receiver. If you're asking me for a pure running back, a guy that could take a draw on 3rd and 7 and go 80 yards to the house, I think that's Barkley, and I think it's Christian McCaffrey. But also with the caveat and the twist of those 2 players is this. Yeah, we could look at Christian McCaffrey getting the amount of money that he got. He also got it from an organization which he was complete and utterly the face of the franchise down there in Carolina. And now he's in San Francisco with the 49ers. But both of those players, Keith, have also battled injury issues over the course of their career too. I mean, that's the issue as well. McCaffrey has not exactly been the epitome of health. And in 81 potential games that Saquon Barkley has been able to suit up and play for the Giants, he's played in 60 of them.
Yeah.
That's 75. He's played. So in essence, he's missed an entire year, and we know he has suffered that ACL injury against the Chicago Bears early on in that season. Took him a ways to get back and to trust that knee. And I'm not knocking. It comes along with the story. Like, you can't tell the story of Saquon Barkley and talk about how great of a person he is, how dynamic of a running back, and then not bring the idea. But there are concerns about whether or not he can hold up physically. Now, I hope he has an unbelievable season. And, I'm not rooting against running backs getting paid. But the other thing that bothered me over the last week, Keith, is I give a healthy respect to, Chubb and all those guys that hopped on the Zoom call over the course of the weekend and talking about where the value of the running back is in the National Football League. And the question is, well, what can running backs do? Let's be honest here. I mean, there are a lot of people that mock, even as good as Bijan Robinson is as a talent, and Gibbs with Detroit is a talent. There are people that look at running backs and drafting them in the first round and say, what are you doing? Draft them in the second, third, fourth, or fifth round. You can find value at the position. But then it's those same individuals that are now screaming and hollering that Saquon Barkley is not going out there and getting paid. That, to me, strikes me, and that's kind of rich, to be honest with you. It strikes me kind of funny. We know the running back has been devalued. It's a passing league. Wide receivers, quarterbacks, tight ends, catching the ball coming out of the backfield. How quickly they made it easier to throw the football. They want points. More points. The more points, the merrier in the NFL week in and week out. We're a long way away from John Riggins getting the handoffs down with with Washington and the Hogs up front. We're a long way away from that. There's some teams that still lean on the ground game. There are. But that's why running backs are not going to get paid what they get paid, nor is their draft stock going to be through the roof like it once was.
Well, and also there's a book, right? Like we have actual data to show us, unfortunately for the running backs, and I love running backs, but unfortunately for the running backs, the shelf life, it exists. And it's a lot shorter than basically every other position. There's literally, we can look in black and white and read numbers and data and stats and see that. And then you can also look at running backs that do get paid. Typically, it doesn't end up working out. And I hate to bring up Todd Gurley again because I'm a huge Todd Gurley fan. And actually, I've seen him do some broadcasting stuff now. I think he has a bright future. I think he could end up being something in this field in broadcasting. But Gurley got paid, and then it didn't work. And then if you want even more data, you mentioned Bijan Robinson, who everyone seemingly does love and thinks that he can be, a fantasy football stud this year and help that Atlanta Falcons offense. Are we to forget that last year the Falcons had Tyler Algier, who took over as their running back, right? And looked like he was the next coming of excellent running back, spot for the Falcons, and they quickly dismiss him. And then we can look at so many other teams. How about the Seahawks? Kenneth Walker looked like he's going to be the best running back or like a top 5 running back in the NFL. They then draft Zach Charbonnet.
Yeah.
Like they're already ready to move on. Like that's what the NFL is. And I think maybe that's the point of that Zoom and the running backs is that they want some sort of scaling system where running backs get paid earlier than later. The quarterbacks tend to have to wait, right? The quarterbacks, that first contract is just okay in the grand scheme of things of the NFL. It's that second and third contract where they get the hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars, and the running backs will never get that. So I think that's where it is. And it was, I think it was Dominique Foxworth that sent it out. The extra pay that sits there in the NFL, and it could be added to people's contracts. There could be something there in order to be able to try to get more money for the running backs kind of up front in, year 2, year 3 kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for, guys getting what they rightfully deserve. And if you're a running back and you get worked really hard in college and you go to the National Football League, you're probably not going to have a long NFL career because you can only take so many hits. I mean, used to be, you look at guys like Eddie George, who was carrying the ball 350, 370 times per season. And, there comes a point then no longer you have that burst. Look at Ezekiel Elliott, as many workout videos as he wants to post and him running through pads and doing all those things. And people are like, oh, the burst is back. No, it's really not. Not when you put pads on them and not when you're comparing them to other players in the National Football League. As we looked at it, Tony Pollard was the best running back the last 2 years in Dallas. He looked really, really slow to the hole. So that's the issue. If they can bring about some sort of change and where running backs get paid a little bit earlier in their NFL career, that's great. But we're in a salary cap world. Yeah. Running backs, when you look at it, you want to be a left tackle, you want to be an edge rusher, you want to be a cover corner. You want to be a quarterback, obviously. That's the top of the charts. And you want to be a receiver. Yep. I mean, those are the things that you want to be in the NFL because guaranteed-wise, if you can be a 3-down linebacker and you can go, and you have got 4.5, 4.4 speed, something like that, then all of a sudden, you're a guy that doesn't come off the field. There's going to be tremendous value there. So, but those are the positions that get paid. It's still a league in which you want to protect yours and get after theirs.
Yeah.
The offensive linemen the big guys up front are going to get paid. We know that. We just saw with Quinnen Williams, who is, for my money, in short order, I think he's going to pass Aaron Donald as the best interior defensive lineman in the NFL. He got his 4 years, $96 million, $66 million guaranteed.
Yeah. If I were a parent of a kid playing football, running back is not the position I necessarily would want them to pursue.
Yeah, but here's the rub to that. Not every running back can go play another position.
Well, no. I
don't know.
I think that most freshmen in high school that are the best athlete in your school that are playing middle linebacker and running back, or are playing free safety and running back, are probably the best at both of those positions for that school. And then at some point, as they near in on making a decision on college, they choose one. So if it was an option, I would choose that safety spot or the corner spot or linebacker, is what I mean.
No, I get it, but it doesn't necessarily
if it's an option.
If it's an option, it doesn't, and not in all instances can you be able to make that switch and you're going to be just as successful at that position. And there's also a lot of times where whatever you are in high school, you sign on with a college team and they're going to move you to where their coaching staff believes your skill set suits them best. Yeah. That comes along with the how many times you see guys where, they were offensive players, they were, and then all of a sudden they're playing defensive back, or they're playing safety, or they're running back and they're playing safety, or they're safety and then they're playing whatever it might be, Keith. We've seen that time and time again. Let's be honest, it's still a significant amount of money. I understand.
That's where we started with this. $11 million is still crazy money.
Right. And if you're a fantasy player right now, you don't have to worry about Saquon. And then listen, you and I were both on board. Saquon was never going to miss. He was never going to go through $600,000 game check fines for missing games during the regular season. He's going to be there day one. The Giants and him ever reached. He didn't sign the franchise tag. They agreed to a one-year deal. They couldn't agree to a multi-year contract. That came and went July the 17th, about 8 days ago at 4:00 that they could have reached that. We know that. He went out there and vented, and he was emotional, and then people overreacted to that. He's human. We'd all be emotional too, and vent a little bit and be frustrated if, the place that you want to be doesn't necessarily show you the same amount of love that you have for them. That's okay. That happens. That's normal. That's natural. So he went out there on a podcast and decided to do that. Don't overreact to it. He's a human being, and Saquon was just venting. He's going to be there, was never not going to be there. And if you're a fantasy player now, you have a guy and you're looking toward your drafts that, Keith, he's, for me, behind McCaffrey, he's the second running back right now off the board for me. When I look at...
I have Eckler ahead of him, but Barkley would be right after that.
Yeah. However way, McCaffrey's one. Right?
Yes.
And then you have McCaffrey, Eckler, Barkley. So I have McCaffrey, Barkley, Eckler.
Yeah.
It's
which
really,
is really splitting hairs.
Yeah, those are the top three running backs, however way you want to go. But he's now, and I'll tell you this, if you're a fantasy player, he is going to run. As long as he stays healthy, he's going to play with a little bit more of an edge this year based on everything that happened this offseason as well.
Yeah.
And that's only to your benefit as a fantasy player.
Yeah, and a lot of people are talking about, my hamstring's a little tight. Maybe I'll just sit this one out. Let's revisit what we both mentioned 21 minutes ago. It's not who Saquon is. Saquon is the leave it all out on the field guy. He's not the, I'm going to sit out. He's not that guy. Unless something changed, and he's not that guy.
No, he's not. He is absolutely not that guy. And that's the thing that bothers me when I hear those kind of conversations, Keith, is he's got too much pride, too much of a sense of professionalism, too much of a amount of respect for himself and for what he does in the Giants organization to go out there and pull that nonsense. Because I heard, I won't name names, but I heard players doing, you could sign the tender and then do a hold in. To where then, as you mentioned, my hamstring's not feeling right. I'm not going to go out on the practice field and just stand there and not do anything. He would never do that to his teammates. He just wouldn't. It's not in his nature.
The other part about that is people are talking about that as if it would change anything. It wouldn't. No. Because there's still going to be young running backs that are talented that'll just step into your spot then, and they'll get your spot. The hold in idea as opposed to the hold out thing,
Yeah.
All it does is make the actual player not look great. And I don't think, especially a guy like Saquon, and there might be some other guys out there that would do it and we wouldn't bat an eye because we just kind of expect it from them. Saquon, maybe you and I are closer to the situation because we're in the New York area. I don't see him being that dude.
One other big NFL news is out in Vegas with the Raiders, and that is that Jimmy Garoppolo has passed his physical. So everything dealing with that foot and dealing with his contract with Vegas and the fact that Vegas could get out from underneath that contract and owe him next to nothing if he didn't necessarily pass his physical. Well, Garoppolo, that's why he didn't have the presser. That's why he didn't have everything rolling out after they signed him. You know, Josh McDaniel, year 2 out there in Vegas. Carr now, the quarterback of the New Orleans Saints. Darren Waller, the tight end, now a New York Giant. It's amazing. McDaniel loves to drive talented players away from his team, whether it be in Denver or now in Vegas. Like, talented players, please leave. Like, if you're not buying it, like, it's amazing. It's like a pilgrimage away. It's crazy. But I know they still have Devontae Adams. I mean, they've got an issue now, a massive one with Josh Jacobs, because he's not going to play nice after the amount of carries they had last year. He's looking to get money, and he walked away from the negotiating table. So we'll see if they're able to find an accord. We know how big of a player Jacobs is, but they're going to have their quarterback, Garoppolo, pass that physical.
Yeah, and Jacobs, by the way, does not seem. Again, I think Josh Jacobs seems like a great guy. He doesn't seem like he's in love with the Raiders the way Barkley loves the Giants.
I don't think so. No.
Right? Like, I feel like Jacobs is in love with being in the NFL, and I think he'd be fine being with another team. Saquon would like to be with the Giants for as long, if not all of his career, if he could be.
Yeah, Saquon, I think in his heart of hearts, Saquon 20 years from now would love to be having a ceremony at MetLife Stadium where he's being inducted into the Ring of Honor, where he is a lifelong Giant, where he's playing charity golf events and, people are, talking about his days and his heyday as a New York Giant. He wanted to be drafted by the Giants coming out of Penn State. He takes great pride in being a New York Giant. But, yeah, now, if it doesn't work and the Giants don't want to pay him and some other buddy's going to pay him, he's going to leave. It's not, it's
still a business. Yes.
Right. He's not going to romanticize it to a point where it's not going to be the benefit of him. But with all things being even, or equal, he would like to remain with the Giants. I agree with you. I think Jacobs, and I don't blame Jacobs. Like, he ran the ball a lot last year and he played hurt. And that's where you get back to that Zoom call that running backs had over the course of the weekend, Keith, is that's something that needs to be looked at, and continue to be looked at in terms of, well, the amount of touches, the way running backs are being used, and then how quickly teams then move on from said player because their analytics are telling you that there's going to be a significant drop off due to wear and tear of that player after a significant usage rate in a particular season.
Who do you think had the most rushing attempts last year of all running backs?
I thought it was Jacobs.
He's second. Derrick Henry was 1 at 349, but Josh Jacobs was at 340. But then if you want to add in the touches, then it ends up as Jacobs because Jacobs had 20 more catches than Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean, Jacobs had an unbelievable offensive year, but they worked him.
He had over 2,000 total yards.
Yeah,
pretty impressive. But
it's a little sad I'm happy football is here. Like, I'll be out at Giants camp tomorrow morning. For WPIX. So looking forward. It's gonna be a long day tomorrow, but gonna be looking forward to being out there and seeing Shane and Dayball and Saquon and the players and stuff like that. Like, that'll be fun. But when football right now, we're on the precipice. It basically now we get into the steamroll effect to the ball is rolling downhill to week 1 of the NFL regular season. That means the end of summer. That means the end of beach days. That means the end of pool days. That means the end of waking up and it's 90 degrees and sunny outside.
Yeah. Hey, listen.
I get a little sad about that.
I know I'm with you too, but
I get a little mushy on that.
We got 5 weeks left of actual summer. Okay.
Yes.
So, and we've had 4.5 weeks so far. Think about it. We have more time left for summer than we've taken away. Okay. Just think about it that way. Glass is half full, baby. Glass is half full.
That's right. That's true. Heather, do we have the Goodell cut before we go to break and welcome in Alan, talk about, I was wondering if we have the Goodell cut about the Washington Commanders.
We actually do.
Oh,
all right,
okay,
let's play it. Here's Goodell introducing Josh Harris, the new general managing partner of the Washington Commanders.
As you all are aware, the primary purpose of today's meeting was to approve the transaction of the Washington Commanders. That vote was unanimously taken today. Josh Harris and his impressive ownership group was improved 32-0. So Josh, congratulations.
Thank you.
Come on over. We got something for you.
Okay, excellent.
I think Josh is going to be a great addition to the NFL and his ownership group. He has a remarkable business record, not just in finance, but also now in sports. He's brought an incredible group of investors and partners that all seem to have ties to Washington.
It's an exciting day. Commissioner, thank you for voting for us and allowing us to be partners and great stewards in the NFL. And we're excited for your trust, and we will not let you down.
Yeah, love it. I mean, honestly, the loser leaves town, and the loser, I mean, in Dan Snyder. He's out as Washington Commanders owner. Josh Harris and his group is in. Magic Johnson, part of that ownership group. I saw the interview that he'd had. I forget who interviewed him. I saw it on, that was it. It was on NBC. It was on the Today Show. Magic Johnson getting emotional about being a part now of an ownership group in the National Football League. So Snyder's out. Josh Harris is in. Is everything okay, Keith? You seem to be.
Yeah, no, I'm sorry, but there's breaking news from TMZ right now, and I'm just trying to double check that it's correct.
All right, while we go to break, we'll come back and see if it's
not good if this is correct.
All right, we'll come back. It's Moose and Keith with you right here on the Better Sports Network.
Breece Hall right now, and I've talked to plenty of high-stakes players, I'm sure you have too, Kev. Had Hall not torn his ACL last year, he might have been the 101 in drafts this year. That's how good he was looking last year, and obviously with the addition of Aaron Rodgers. At the 305, running back 11 behind Derrick Henry and Ramondre Stevenson, right ahead of Jahmyr Gibbs and Najee Harris. Your thoughts on him as a mid-third round pick? How have you been attacking him? Have you been getting him at that spot so far this year?
Yeah, if I start out with two wide receivers, Breece Hall is right at the top of the queue coming into the third. If I knew he'd be healthy for week one, I was still a little.
Well, he'd be going higher than the mid third.
Right. He may go 101. Well, RB1 at least.
Yeah.
But I don't think we know that even if he's healthy in spring and the summer, I still like if I'm running a team, if I'm the coach, I'm bringing him back slow. Like he's on a pitch count. Like I want him for the end of the season because I got Aaron Rodgers for the playoffs, right? Like even if he's fully healthy, I would work him in slow. But that is actually what you want. Like he's still going to get the high value touches. So yeah, if we know he's healthy, he's a first rounder. So like if he's sitting there in the third, especially when I get two wide receivers to start, I'll take Hall all day.
Yeah, it almost makes you think that the uncertainty with Breece Hall has made him unfairly fall too far, right? Like because we're talking about the team here in June. They're still hoping that he's ready for week one. This is not, we'll see what happens. We're taking it day by day. We're liking how he's coming along. No, they still think by week one. And the fact that we have that timeline, I think, maybe bumps him up, especially as the drafting season gets deeper and deeper here in July and August. Maybe we start seeing him go up the boards as well.
All right, it is Moose and Keith.
It's not that.
That's that. I'm gonna take the blame on that one. I forgot that we were going to some video there. No, Heather, that's not on you. That's on me. We originally planned to do video here.
Yes.
But we are throwing a little bit of a curveball here. So a few different outlets now have it. I told you TMZ Sports had it first. Shams Charania has it out there too. Let me just read this to you. What I will say is the end of this is better than what it sounds like at the beginning. That's a good thing. A James family spokesperson tells TMZ Sports yesterday while practicing, Bronny James suffered a cardiac arrest. Medical staff was able to treat Bronny and take him to the hospital. He is now in stable condition. So the stable condition thing is the good part of this, but he was in ICU. And then as per the post here, we ask for respect and privacy for the James family. We will update media when there is more information. LeBron and Savannah wish to publicly send their deepest thanks and appreciation to the USC medical and athletic staff for their incredible work and dedication to the safety of their athletes. So apparently there was a 911 call in the morning at Galen Center, and he was unconscious at the time. He was taken away by an ambulance. That's Bronny James. Wow.
Yeah, thank God he's in stable condition.
Yeah, wow.
Yeah, and the personnel.
And I'm sorry, you were talking, and I saw this pop up, and I just totally wow. Okay.
Yeah, he's okay, which is good. We'll see exactly what it is next, and thank God he's okay. And medical staff was there to do exactly what they do, and we'll see exactly where this story goes and where his basketball future does lie, but certainly scary. Let's welcome aboard right now, and he joins the program. And that is Alan Seslowsky from RotoWire, joins us now. Good morning, Alan. Marc, Malusis, Keith Irizarry with you. Thanks for the time this morning.
How can you bring me in after a story like that? Do a happy story.
Well, he's okay. The happiness is that he's fine. I mean,
Yeah.
he's in stable condition. He's fine. He went into cardiac arrest. I mean, that's thank God the medical personnel were there quickly. They took him to the hospital, and we don't know what the next steps are with Bronny James and USC and in terms of playing basketball, but he's alive and he's okay. Thank God.
Yeah, no, it's great to talk to and see two New York guys. I'm a lifelong New Yorker living down in Florida now, like every New Yorker does.
What part of Florida are you in now?
It's Jacksonville, which is, it's not Miami Beach, but I
was there for the Jacksonville Super Bowl. That was
right. That was
not a.
It's never happened.
What part of New York are you from?
I'm a Long Island guy, but I lived in Manhattan forever.
Where in Long Island?
Oyster Bay, baby. Billy Joel.
All right. I guess my wife teaches up there, and I grew up in Lindenhurst in Suffolk County.
So, Alan, can I ask you, was it marriage? Was it work? What made the pilgrimage to Florida? Because you're a young guy. Usually you make your way into Florida in retirement years. You want to get out of the cold. You want to get out of the Four Seasons. You don't want to deal with
Watch Alan tell us, no, I'm actually 72 years old. You don't know.
No. You're a young guy. What made you make the pilgrimage earlier on down to FLA? I know there's no state taxes. That does help. I mean, you're getting taxed by the
I'm having the Benjamin Buttons. I'm really 84. No, you had it exactly right, man. It's love. I chased love down here, right? I mean, isn't that what we do for?
Well, that's
what else?
it.
That's what else do you do it for, right? No, my wife and I, again, lifelong New Yorkers, moved down here, but also, and I know that you anchor the desk over at for PIX. I was going to ask both of you, who is the GOAT, like the top of Mount Rushmore sports anchor New York all time? You can't include yourself. I mean, there's one answer to this, right? Who's the guy? New York
Jerry
sports?
Gerard.
Okay, that's a good one. That's
for
a good
TV
one.
or radio?
TV.
Ooh.
Well, my guy, I mean, Warner Wolf.
That's it. Let's go to the videotape.
Well, I mean, I think I'm friends with Bruce Beck. I think Beck is unbelievable. I mean, he is a man of the people. He works his rear end off. He's all over the place.
Right. I mean, but you can only pick one. This is the Jordan, Kareem versus LeBron conversation that nobody ever wins, right?
Well, let's do this. So if it's Warner Wolf, I'll put Moose on the spot. Can Bruce Beck catch him?
Yeah, I think he can.
Because I mean, Bruce is 50.
No, he's older than that. I won't say his age, but he's older than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. But I knew he was older than us, but I just wasn't sure. Okay.
Yeah. He's older than that, but he does it all. I was speaking at his broadcasters camp last week at Iona, which was awesome, fun, great, talking about doing radio and everything like that. But he works morning, noon, and night. He barely gets any rest. Like, it's crazy what Bruce does.
And he always has a good tan too.
Yeah. He looks fit and trim. He looks a lot younger than his age, and he looks fantastic. So
you better not be roiding. I mean, that's what's going on. Does Bruce have a phrase like I mean,
he doesn't have the let's go to the videotape. He does not have that kind of catchphrase.
Branding and marketing. I mean,
that's true. You're right about that. You need a thing.
Yep. When you talked about how your wife teaches, if you'd ask kids nowadays about let's go to the videotape, they wouldn't even understand what language you're talking.
No, not at all. No, and Moose teaches broadcasting. I do the same. He does it up at Iona, and I'm over at Hofstra. Yeah, if we start talking about, let's break down when you used to do reel-to-reel editing, they'd be like, excuse me, what?
Yeah,
I'll just pick up my phone and go on Instagram and make a reel. That's what you mean?
That's exactly right. No, it's not
Yeah.
that. Al, let's get into a little football with you. Keith and I were talking about big news this morning with Saquon Barkley, 1-year deal with the Giants, gets a little bit more money above the franchise tag of about $10.1 million. So he's going to be there, players reporting today, practice tomorrow, meets with the media tomorrow. Where do you put Saquon on your running back fantasy list this year?
I mean, you got to take him in the first round, obviously, right? I mean, in drafts over the last couple days, he was falling to the third round in high stakes leagues where people are putting up $300, $500, $1,500. That was always a mistake. So in the top 4 running backs, I mean, it's very reasonable to have him as running back 2, 3, or 4. I know that you guys don't have Bijan Robinson, the rookie is in your top 3. I do. We can get into that in a moment. But the problem with Saquon is what you identified earlier. There's an injury history there. There's some miles on him, right? There is always, he runs hard, but he plays in all facets of the game. So in those leagues where you get a points per reception, he can end up being the number 1 overall player. That's obvious. But there is some risk with all running backs, which is why I like the newly minted sports car named Bijan Robinson.
So let's break down Bijan, because I think there are things to discuss with him. All right, so let's do this. Number 1, do you believe that Bijan Robinson will be able to catch 50 or more balls this year?
I do believe that. I believe that Bijan, again, the reason they take nowadays, teams are smart. It's not optimal to take a running back in the top 10 picks, pick 8. So if you're drafting a player like that in the real NFL draft, you better believe he's going to be playing in all facets of the game. It's not like you're going to take an like a Derrick Henry player, even though that he would have been a great top 10 pick. That type of a player that's not going to be catching a lot of passes, you're not going to take that player in the top 10. So yes, I do believe he'll be a pass catcher.
So with that answer being yes, the next question would be, and then I'll hand it back over to Moose on this one, is Algier is still there. Does that scare you at all on Bijan?
I mean, every running back has a running back behind him that's no running back is getting 35 touches anymore. It's just not happening. So you want your running back, the best you could expect of these guys is about 18 to 20 touches if they're a workhorse. A workhorse is very different than even a decade and a half ago. So Tyler Algier, a 5th round drafted player, played linebacker when he was at BYU for a little bit. Yeah, he's going to take some of the work. But if you're going to draft running backs early, this is about as good of a situation as you get. A running back that's not a true threat, but someone that can relieve Bijan of 8 to 10 carries a game.
All right, Al, where do you have Travis Etienne, who I liked a lot last year with Jacksonville? Where do you place him in terms of the running back rankings?
Running back, Travis Etienne, he's a reasonable pick in fantasy football in the 3rd or 4th round. Travis Etienne, you talk about players that scare you a little bit behind the lead runner. Tank Bigsby, the rookie that Jacksonville drafted in the 3rd round. So again, draft capital matters, not so much in where, hey, 5th rounders do this, 3rd rounders do that. Tyler Algier, as you already said, has an NFL resume with 1,000 yards on it. Back to Travis Etienne. If you're a drafter that likes drafting wide receivers early, especially in the first 2 rounds, you can't ask for a better player, a better running back in a better situation than Travis Etienne. So even though you prefer to take someone like Etienne, who's had his problems, he hasn't been a dynamic pass catcher as we thought in the NFL so far, if you can get him in the late 3rd, early 4th round, that's a perfect fit on your fantasy team if you're a wide receiver early drafter.
How do you handle running backs coming off injuries like the Breece Halls of the world, the Javonte Williams of the world?
I go to my list that I have for my fantasy football, and then I cross them off. Do not draft Breece Hall in fantasy football. It is literally the worst pick you can make in your fantasy football league. Not because he's not a great player. Breece Hall, if he was healthy, he's a defensible 1st overall pick. This guy had not only an ACL injury, week 7. Week 7 ACL. It wasn't like it was last summer. Usually, these guys are about 10 months to play, which would get them around week 1, which lines up with what we're hearing, and about 18-ish months, and this is on average, to get back to kind of where they were. it's not that Breece Hall can't be good for you at the end of the season. It's that who are you giving up to take Breece Hall? I mean, if you don't have Breece Hall, I mean, look at J.K. Dobbins last season, guys. Oh, the drum beats were good, and then he gets out there, misses time, doesn't play well. I'll draft Breece Hall in 2024. It's just I'm foregoing an elite quarterback. I'm foregoing Travis Etienne. It's not for me.
Is Dalvin Cook someone you're willing to gamble on because he still doesn't have a team, but you're looking at where does he fall round-wise for you, Alan?
I mean, Dalvin Cook's been dropping like a stone, and now that it's come out that, again, we don't know what's going on with his off-field situation, so he's going to keep dropping. I've seen in some of the high-stakes drafts that he's going from round 3 to round 5 to round. I mean, there's a point where you just take him because of players that you get in the 8th round, you're going to most likely not play them, or you're going to drop them anyway at some point. So Dalvin Cook, I'm not excited to take. Usually around the time that he goes in fantasy football drafts, I'm looking to take my quarterback, whether it's Justin Herbert in the 5th round or a tight end I like Darren Waller on the Giants, who should be just a receptions machine this year. So I'm not taking Dalvin. Now, if he lands on the Miami Dolphins, which is the spot, right, then I'm going to be a lot more interested. But when I'm putting my hard-earned cash down in these fantasy leagues, I want certainty in the top 6 rounds.
One of Moose's guys last year was Christian Watson, and it feels like this year coming in, you're either all in on Watson or you're like, where are you?
I want to kiss Moose's feet right now for being in on Christian Watson. Okay, hold on. Let me get down. Let me kiss the feet. Christian Watson, from the time he started last year as a full-time player around week 10 to the end of the season, that's 2 months. I mean, it's a small sample size, but football's a small sample size. Wide receiver 9 in fantasy football. That's a top 10 wide receiver from the time he started as a full-time player, including, you can say, well, Aaron Rodgers isn't there. A game of 1 against the Eagles in week 12, had 4 catches for 110 yards and a touchdown. Not bad, right? Now, again, small sample, but it's better to have that than not have it. I don't understand why he's not being thought of in the same. I mean, he already broke out. I mean, we're pushing Chris Olave up. We're pushing Garrett Wilson up. I'm not saying draft Christian Watson there, but in these high stakes drafts where Christian Watson on the 3-4 turn, I'm taking him. In your typical home league, you won't have to take him till the 5th round. All in.
Alan, who's the receiver? I know everyone, Kelsey's the number 1 tight end in fantasy football, but if you look at Kansas City, the receiver that you want out for the Chiefs is who?
This may surprise some people, but I still want Kadarius Toney. You know why? Because he's hurt and he was going around the 6th, 7th turn. Now he's going to drop, right? He's going to drop 2-3 rounds in your fantasy draft. It's not because he can't happen again or he can't flame out, but he is the nuclear option. You talk about, we use the term in fantasy football a lot, league winner, very loosely. He's basically Will Fuller, right? When he's on the field, he has that nuclear upside that can get you a 30-point game and win it all. But if you want to just talk about like players that have a chance, I think Sky Moore, one of the best ways to play fantasy football is look at the second-year receivers who didn't break out but are still in a good situation. I think Sky Moore in the 9th, 10th round is a very reasonable play. Last year's 2nd-round pick.
You know, you hyped up Bijan a lot. So with Bijan, he's a rookie. We've seen other rookies come out the gates really strong. Who are some of the rookies that you're clearly targeting this year?
Well, I mean, obviously, Bijan, what you said. I think Jahmyr Gibbs in the 3rd round is a very reasonable bet in PPR leagues where he can catch the football. I mean, the Lions were really excited to take him. If Bijan Robinson didn't exist, we'd be talking about Jahmyr Gibbs with the same type of excitement. Now, again, it's not like we're not speaking about him. He's going in is going to be going in the 3rd round. But all of the wide receivers that have 1st-round draft capital, we're talking about Jordan Addison, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Quentin Johnson and Zay Flowers. Those are all reasonable bets. Ironically, the one player, the guy who went first, Jackson Smith and Jigba to the Seattle Seahawks, is the guy who I like the least for fantasy football, just because he projects as the 3rd target in that wide receiver core right there. Whereas the other guys maybe stand to get a little bit more opportunity, especially Jordan Addison on the Minnesota Vikings.
We're talking to Alan Seslowsky and doing a fantastic job getting you caught up fantasy football, no doubt. And Alan does great work with RotoWire. Alan, is there we ran through rookies. What about quarterbacks in terms of what's your philosophy? I know league rules depend on how aggressive you are. We busted our boss's chops, Matt Deutsch. He was drafting Justin Fields in the 1st round. because he thinks he's going to be the top point getter. When do you start to look at upper echelon quarterbacks, the Mahomes, Jaylen Hurts, Fields, those caliber of quarterbacks? Is there a round that you start to target those guys?
Well, the fantasy football market has anointed a big three: Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, and Jaylen Hurts in some order. Be prepared to pay a top 20 pick, a late first or early second round pick if you want those. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong to do it, but I think what we do in fantasy football, guys, which is a big mistake, is we think what happened last year is going to happen again this year. Not always the case. I tend to do my quarterback shopping in that 4th and 5th round. I love Lamar Jackson this year, who's already a league MVP. And it's kind of cliche to say Todd Monken, the new offensive coordinator, but this is a real thing. We've seen Todd Monken electrify an offense. And, you saw the James Jones clip floating around social media where they said they're bringing it back to Louisville for Lamar Jackson. They're going to go 4 wide. So when Lamar Jackson scrambles, he's going to be facing 5 in the box and not 9. So to answer your question, I'm waiting to around the 4th or 5th round. I love Lamar Jackson. I love Justin Herbert with the upgraded offensive situation there as well. But if I'm waiting on my quarterback, Daniel Jones, why are we forgetting that he doesn't throw interceptions? He runs the football. And we love Brian Dable. We love the upgraded situation. We saw how he progressed Josh Allen every year. So if I'm playing my weight on QB game, it's Daniel Jones.
If you don't get one of the top 2 or 3 tight ends, do you punt at that position?
I don't punt tight end because then you're just in tight end hell for the rest of the year. You're never going to get that guy starting. I mean, the idea is like, okay, I'll gamble on this guy. It's like playing roulette, right? You put a tight end in and it never lands on your number. You could get lucky. So I want at least a player with a reasonable floor at tight end. I identified Darren Waller earlier. I mean, he is the number 1 target that I'm projecting in New York for the Giants there, a PPR machine. He's already been an elite tight end player. You only have to pay about a 6th or 7th round. Now, if I miss out on him, Juwan Johnson on the New Orleans Saints is a reasonable target. But again, these players, if they have 2 bad weeks in a row, you're never comfortable starting them. I mean, the 1 week that Juwan Johnson goes 2 for 38, how can I reasonably start him again the next week? You want players that you have confidence every week, even if they bottom out like a Pat Freiermuth on Pittsburgh Steelers, for example. If he has a bad week, you're still comfortable shoving him back in your lineup.
Alan, do you have a fade list when you go into drafts? Are there guys you're like, I'm not a believer this year. Like I'm anti these guys. Like, is there a couple guys that you were just trying to avoid drafting this year?
Yeah, there's a couple of them. And I think Devontae Adams, who it's almost, heartbreaking to say so because he's just been like a fantasy football gold for so many years. There's just a lot of bad vibes coming out of Las Vegas right now. We don't know if Josh Jacobs is going to be there to take some pressure off Jimmy Garoppolo in the passing game. Now we found out Jimmy Garoppolo is going to be there, but it's that connection with him and Devontae Adams. I just don't want to pay the late first, early second round pick. If Devontae Adams somehow fell to the 3rd round, not happening. He's a name brand player. Then, at some point you just take the guy. The other players we talked about are injured players. Javonte Williams on the Denver Broncos. I don't care if he's starting week 1. If he beats me on someone else's team, that's fine. That's where I'm trying to target the Darren Waller types. And so anyone that's injured, Devontae Adams early, cross them off.
For me, I love to do this when we get our fantasy analysts on and it's, preseason. We haven't gotten into it yet. So here we go. Are you you want defenses on your roster? Do you want kickers on your roster? Do you like super flex?
Yes, and yes. So
you want defenses and kickers?
I'll tell you. Yeah. I'm okay without them, but I don't mind them either. There's nothing better to me than when I beat your fantasy team by 1 kicker point and you start complaining to the league how kickers, they're BS. And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I love that Younghoe Koo beat you by 1 point on the last and I win my fantasy matchup. I know that variance is going to go and turn against me, but here is the kicker strategy, by the way. If you're in a league with kickers, and again, most of my leagues don't have them. So I'm drafting Justin Tucker, which everyone knows is an all-timer. And here's why. I'm going to reach up in like a 16, 18 round draft, take him in the 12th round. And you say, whoa. You take kickers in the last round. No, you don't. Justin Tucker is almost a lock to be a top 5 kicker, and he's got a week 13 bye. You don't have to. Sometimes if you take a kicker early, you feel pressure to keep them, and now you're using up a roster spot. By week 13, you're going to know if you're in the playoffs or not, right? You're going to basically know. So you put them on there on your roster, an elite kicker with a late bye, draft them early because your 12th round pick anyway, you're going to drop them at some point. And then defenses, I love Washington week 1. I love the Giants week 2. Why? Because they're playing the Arizona Cardinals.
Oh, there you go. I like that as well. All right, Alan, how many leagues are you doing this year? Give or take.
Well, you know what? I'm going to give you an under-over, and then you tell me, all right? Since this is a betting show. 37.5.
Over.
I'll take the under.
It's way over. It's 48.
Yeah,
so far. Yeah, it's
doing 40.
Yes.
Now, Alan,
Yeah.
can I ask you, like, just because I have trouble keeping track? I'm in like 3 or 4. Like, you're in 48 leagues.
I need help.
How do you keep track? Like, is this a team effort? You and your wife? Like, do you have multiple partners? Like, how exactly do you keep track of 48 teams?
And by the way, that doesn't include my 55 best balls that I'm in right now as well. So I'm talking about 48 net.
Set it and forget it. Yeah.
Yeah. So no, it's horrible. It's a life of misery. I have a drafting problem. I'm gonna probably start a 12-step group if anyone else out there has that same issue. I do a ton of dynasty leagues. I can't stop drafting. It's like the slot machine. I literally feel like an old lady at a penny slot machine. You know what I'm saying? When I'm pulling the lever, smoking my cigarette. It's horrible. In the summer when I'm drafting all these teams, it's fantastic. But then the dopamine wears off and I'm in the corner shivering on Thursday night when I have to set my lineups.
I don't know where to follow with that one. I'm just picturing him in the corner shaking now.
Yeah.
Alan, last bit of advice for our audience is this. So you've gone, you're going to be in 40. You're going to have 48 teams this year. Some of them are dynasty leagues. What is your top 2 points going into a draft that you like to keep in mind, or the advice for people that are just getting into fantasy football?
Oh yeah. So it's a great question. I'll give you a piece for dynasty and a piece for redraft. For dynasty leagues, don't punt for next year. Don't play for next year. You know, people are saying, oh, you know, I'm going to draft all young players. They suffer from sexy roster syndrome, right? There's a lot of value in veterans in dynasty leagues, meaning like, you know, the Keenan Allens, the Mike Evans, the players that nobody wants that actually produce. DeAndre Hopkins would be a perfect example this year. So there's, you know, vets go cheap. And the best way to do that is look at the redraft rankings and look at the dynasty rankings and see who has the biggest gap. So dynasty, get some vets, give away your rookies. You'll even get value for it. Now, in your redraft leagues, pick the players who you want within ADP. Everyone out here has an opinion, and let me be the first one to admit, experts know just as much as you do. Now, the average person, Bob in accounting, can follow ADP and be a pretty sharp drafter. There was years ago, 25 years ago, you know, there was an edge in information. Now everybody has notifications on here. So understanding what ADP is, you don't want to take a player in the 3rd round that you can get in the 8th round, but pick the players that you want, you know what you're doing, and you got this.
Alan Seslowsky from RotoWire. Alan, you're great. You could tell you're a native New Yorker. I got to be honest with you, though. You're not a native Floridian or from Jacksonville. You could tell you've got that edge. Love it. Great personality. Love the old lady at the penny slot chain smoking, trying to win down in Atlantic City. You're the best, man. We appreciate the time and thanks for the advice and good luck in your 48 leagues.
Oh my God. I might enlist you to help me manage them.
Alan, let's play a quick over-under, right? 48 leagues. How many over-under, if I set it at 20, that you win?
No, it's more likely it's like 12. So if I win 12, and especially depending on which one, because some of them are $50 leagues, some of them are $350 leagues, right? So you have to win the big ones. So I would say 12. If I don't win 12 or at least finish in the money in like 15 of them, it was a bad year. So 20 would be, you know, I'd basically retire from RotoWire, and that would be it.
I mean, you're already living in Florida, so there you go.
Exactly. In Jacksonville.
Alan, enjoy. Have a good rest of your Tuesday. We got to do this again. All right. Thanks, Alan.
Thanks, man.
You got it. Alan Seslowsky from RotoWire. We'll come back. Warren Sharp will join the program. He's Keith Irizarry. I'm Marc Malusis. It's Moose and Keith with you on a Tuesday right here, Better Sports Network.
I feel like this is a quietly contentious point in dynasty fantasy football, what it means to actually be rebuilding. Some people say you should never truly be rebuilding. How do you view the rebuilding versus competing dichotomy in dynasty?
So I will be the first person to acknowledge that my preferred format of fantasy football is just redraft. The years that I have played Dynasty, it has been, I've drafted a win now team because I've seen people that have just gotten into the cycle of rebuilding and thus they just don't make any progress. So if you're rebuilding for the 5th year in a row, I just, I don't know exactly how you get out of it, but yeah, it's definitely something that can happen. And a lot of people, especially when we come out of the NFL draft, everyone's just instantly shipping off, draft picks and everything. So, I mean, it's definitely something that can happen.
Joey, do you feel similarly to it? Do you feel like you see people getting stuck in the rebuilding loop?
I mean, I would say people that try to rebuild in the beginning of seasons, of their fantasy seasons, I see them get stuck in that rut. I would really try to only ever rebuild if I knew I was going to miss the playoffs. Like, I'm always trying to play to win, even if it's maybe I don't know.
I think my big thing is the word rebuild is a much shorter time frame than I think most people say it should be. Like, they look at rebuild as like 3 years out competing. Rebuild, you're looking to compete next season. You know what I mean? Like, if you're doing it now, you're looking to revamp, and maybe there's a one season where you ship it off, but that very next season you should be competing. If you're doing it like that, I'm cool with it, but you gotta have a plan, not just keep getting the young players, keep getting the draft picks. Otherwise, you end up like Tim. Maybe not like Tim who gets a bye, but you make the playoffs, you're in that like 4 to 6 range every year, just hovering in the middle. Nothing ever gets better, nothing ever gets worse.
I think I play like you in Dynasty, Simon. I play in 3-year windows.
100%. That's my go-to. And with the rate at which Dynasty leagues turn over, you should really only ever play in a 3-year window.
If I really love this decision. Over the middle, got his man, and look at him go! Jaylen Waddle for the touchdown! There you go, baby. Waddle's going to come inside on the slant, and he's just going to split 3 safeties. He's going to hit split 3 players.
Field a block for Waddle, who runs in for the touchdown. And basically a 13-point swing, waddling his way for 6.
Trying to cut Waddle's route short. Has a big 3rd down here.
3rd and 13, and to the end zone. Gesicki, touchdown! What a catch!
There you have it. A nice compilation of the Dolphins. Warren Sharp joins us right now. Hops on the program. He from Sharp Football, and hit him up on Twitter there, and love chatting with Warren, who joins us now. Good morning, Warren. How are you, bud?
Doing great, guys. Thanks for having me on. Excited to talk a little ball with you, and obviously super excited that training camps are here and we back to football season, although it never really ends, does it? But it's much more exciting when training camps are open.
Yeah, so Christmas in July, Sharp Football analysis. You're getting into the holiday spirit. Explain this.
Yeah, so I work for months on my 2023 football preview. I've got a hard copy of it right here. This thing is 532 pages of all of my predictions for this upcoming season. And what we decided to do is anybody who buys that book gets a chance to win a subscription to the website. And we've got subscriptions that are betting subscriptions, fantasy subscriptions, future subscriptions. We're giving away over $10,000 worth of subscriptions to the website, over 30 different subscriptions we're giving away. And you get a free entry to win one of those. But you have to buy this book or our draft kit, which is done by Rich Rebar, our NFL fantasy draft guru. That draft kit or this book by midnight tonight, and you get an entry to win one of 30 free subscriptions that we're giving away for this upcoming season.
All right, Warren. So if someone purchases what does the book go for?
The book goes for $34.99. The draft kit goes for $29.99.
Beautiful. Okay, so estimate the amount of hours that it takes you to put together that book and the predictions and making sure it's buttoned up, cross the T's, dot the I's. Like you love football. It's a thing of passion, the hard work, the energy. You're very successful at what you do. Just talk about the man hours it takes to put that together.
Well, it's a collaborative effort because I have an editor who goes through every word that I write. We also have like our fantasy specialists. They write different aspects of the book. We've got our NFL draft guy who is one of the top 5 most accurate mock drafters in the nation over the last 5 years. He writes up each team's draft classes and what to expect from those players. So there are other people that contribute to different sections within the book, but obviously I write the bulk of the book. And I am spending months on this book, probably starting in March is when I start turning the page and get to work, because the real key, guys, with trying to accurately predict the upcoming season, which you can go on the website and you can see my records for predictions in the futures market. We are really solid with our predictions because I feel like we put in more work than most anybody else in the industry at trying to come up with these things and take it seriously all off season long. But really, you're trying to understand, why did this team get a final record the way that they did last year? How did that record end up being the way that it is? Because Bill Parcells had a quote that says, "You are what your record says you are." And that's completely untrue as it relates to being able to understand value. Because what a team did in a win-loss perspective does not mean that that's what the team's going to do this upcoming year. There's also lots of reasons for why their season went the way that they did, from just the real low-hanging fruit reasons like variance and fumble luck and field goal luck and turnovers and one-score results and things of that nature. These are the low-hanging fruit things. But we're digging into all the details of, like, what quarterbacks did you play? How many injuries did you have? And a lot of the other more nuanced elements. Then what coaching changes occurred? Then what new players did you get in free agency? Then who did you draft? And what schemes are you going to start to implement this year? And then what does your schedule look like? And did the NFL give you good rest or bad rest? Because that's completely in the NFL's control. And so all of this kind of unfolds over the course of the season, where you have the coaching cycle, which is like in early January. Then you have the free agency cycle. Then you have the NFL draft. Then they announce and release the NFL schedule. And so all these things add more layers to start to digest. And there really is no stopping from March onward in terms of analyzing this. But it's once we get to like May and June, that's when, it's like 3 a.m. is the norm. That's my in-season schedule. I'm always up until 3 a.m. and kind of wake up around like 8 a.m. And that's my days of a day of work. And that's what I do during the season. I turn that on in, like, I say, May and June. And then we publish the book in early July.
Warren, what's the stat or stats that get you the most excited to be able to, like, dive into and then come up with, whether it's fantasy related information or gambling related information?
Well, I like to focus on, what drives wins and losses the most. And a lot of people don't realize this. So this is more gambling. This is more NFL focused. But a lot of people don't realize it's, you obviously need to win the turnover battle, but jumping out to leads in games and forcing your opponent to change strategies and become more predictable, and whereas you can, have every single play call at your arsenal and your disposal in the second half of the game, if you are playing with a lead, is massively important. And so teams that I talk with and consult with, a lot of what we focus on is jumping out to leads early in games, having that lead at halftime. And so the way that you do that is by playing efficiently on early downs, early in games, sprinkling in chunk plays. And so it's always like, okay, well, if a drive has one play of 20 plus yards, how much more likely it is to score on that drive than if a drive does not have a play of 20 plus yards? How efficient were teams on early downs? So there's a lot of stats that I look at and parse out that are different kind of than the norm. But, one of the stats I like to look at that, is a reason why I'm bullish on the Atlanta Falcons this year is, how many wins or losses by no more than one score did you have last year? These are games that you are, quote unquote, in. We are in this game. And the Atlanta Falcons, in 15 of their 17 games, they were, quote unquote, in last year. Only 2 teams were in more games than the Falcons last year, the Chiefs and the Bills. And so the Atlanta Falcons are a team, in my opinion, that has a very high floor this upcoming season because they're going to be in so many games. And if they just get a couple more things to go right for them this year, which I think they will in terms of red zone efficiency, in terms of bigger success on some of those explosive plays, this is a team I think that can surprise some people and shock some people, potentially be a dark horse to actually make the playoffs, maybe even to win the NFC South.
All right, let's talk about some individual players. Tua. We played a highlight clip, him hitting Gesicki and Waddle last year. Had a really good year, was an MVP caliber player before he suffered the concussions and went down to injury, that scary one in Cincinnati against the Bengals, Warren. If I look at Tua and say, well, he wasn't able to stay healthy at Alabama, has not been able to stay healthy in Miami, what would lead me to believe that this year is going to be different for Tua outside of him taking karate lessons or learning how to fall during the course of the offseason?
Well, I know that last point sounds silly, and in some respects it is, but this was something that I was discussing during the season last year, that he needs to take training in learning how to fall, maybe some sort of classes, and lo and behold, he actually does it. I think that is going to be a potential difference maker because multiple concussions he suffered just from not knowing how to fall when he was bumped in the pocket. But I believe that Tua is in a great position once again this year. Defenses did start to adjust and tweak some things late last season. And I think part of that came in a game against the Chargers after a game against the 49ers. And Chargers used some of those principles with that too high shell defense to kind of slow down Tua and take away the middle of the field. Well, guess what? Mike McDaniel goes out and hires Vic Fangio to be his defense coordinator this year. And you can guarantee that he's going to take some of the principles that from that too high shell defense that Vic loves to use and try to help his offense overcome some of those impediments. We'll find out week 1 when they play the Chargers as to whether or not this offense has got some answers in the offseason for how to deal with some of the defensive adjustments. The other question that I have that not a whole lot of people are talking about is, how do you replace Mike Gesicki? And it sounds dumb because I took Gesicki's under last year in total yards. I didn't think he was going to be a good fit because this offense needs a tight end that's actually going to block a little bit in addition to catching passes. But an interesting element that I wrote about in the book is that when Gesicki was on the field in third down situations, defenses played a lot more man coverage against the Dolphins offense. And that allowed Tua to play at his best, and they converted a much higher rate of those third downs to get back on track and get back into first down situations and continue to drive the football to score points. And so without Gesicki, they didn't really replace him. They didn't really get a guy who's going to play that strong tight end role for them, even if Gesicki was phased out late and not a great contributor in general. He got that man coverage that Tua performed much better against. So can they still get more man coverage on third down with a replacement? That's to be determined. But I think the ceiling is very high for the Dolphins. I want to find ways to be bullish on the Miami Dolphins this upcoming year. I love the additions they made last offseason. Didn't make quite as many this year, but I think they are still an exciting and competitive team in that stacked AFC East. It's going to be hard to figure out which one of these teams excels and really pulls away from the pack, but I think the Dolphins has just as good a chance as the Jets or the Buffalo Bills is doing that.
So we're always looking for wide receivers, running backs, tight ends, whomever it may be, all these skill position players that might sneak into being top tier. You think Brandon Ayuk has an opportunity to be a top tier player this year? Why?
Yeah, I think this 49ers team is going to need to pass the football a little bit more this season. I don't think that they're going to have quite as much sustained success under Brock Purdy. People forget like that little spurt that Brock Purdy was able to show last year. That often happens to some young quarterbacks earlier on in the season. And then defensive coordinators start to figure out this offense and figure out what they're trying to do with this quarterback and make those adjustments. And then some of those younger quarterbacks do start to tail off a little bit late in their rookie campaign. Well, last year was such a brief stint for Purdy, and it was late in the season, such that defensive coordinators didn't really have a chance to make those adjustments. They're going to have a lot more tape and film on Purdy to start the season. Thus, I don't anticipate, while I still think the 49ers should be favorites to win the NFC West, I don't anticipate the 49ers steamrolling out to like 13, 14 wins this year. As a result, they are going to have to pass the football more. Purdy did have a little bit higher propensity to push the ball down the field to Ayuk, and I just think that there's some good chances in this offense with a potentially higher pass rate for Ayuk to catch more targets and to be have a bigger role in the Niners offense this year.
All right, Warren, I want to ask you about staying in the NFC. Darren Waller. I want to ask you about 3 players with the Giants. Number 1 is, what do you think Jones is this year after getting paid? Barkley reaches the 1-year deal, so it's getting a little bit more money over the franchise tag. What do you expect from Saquon? And then Waller, the big acquisition from the Raiders in the offseason as a pass catcher. What about the Giants offense, and what do you expect from those 3 this year?
First of all, in general, it's easy to point to the Giants and say this team's going to regress because they really outplayed themselves in 1-score games last year, all these fourth quarter comebacks, etc. And I do believe that a lot of that is going to be true. I think with Saquon Barkley, the funny part is I looked at all the milestones that he has to hit to get these bonuses, and like the betting market is completely, fading him massively to get anywhere close to any of those numbers just because he was healthy and played in all 16 games that the Giants played their starters in last year. That's how he was even able to get close to some of those numbers last year. A lot of these milestones he's very unlikely to hit this upcoming year. I think it was a great deal for Joe Schoen and the Giants to get this deal done with Barkley for this upcoming season. I think Waller is going to be massive for this offense. This offense needed a tight end. Another name that a lot of people don't look at, but I wrote about this in the book, and I again encourage you to buy 2023 football preview on the website at Sharp Football Analysis. Daniel Bellinger. This was a young tight end last year, inexperienced, not highly drafted, but played a pivotal role for them early in the season. And when Bellinger went down, I think he wasn't an orbital bone, but he scratched his eye against, I believe, the Jacksonville Jaguars and missed several games. Like, this team's offense definitely did struggle because they are designed to have a tight end there to be a support system for Daniel Jones. And I think the addition of Waller and then the ability to play a little bit of 12 personnel is going to be massive for them. Now, of course, Waller has to stay healthy and you have to factor a little bit of injury risk into your projections, but I think Waller's going to be huge. For Daniel Jones, the best part about him is the rushing upside and the fact that he's playing for a coach that understands how efficient run plays are for quarterbacks. And I believe that Daniel Jones is going to have a higher floor just because of that rushing volume. The problem is that he threw only 15 touchdown passes last year. I mean, he does not have a very high ceiling. I wrote a lot of articles this offseason as to why I did not believe he was worth a big contract, because I think a lot of what he did last year, it's really this interesting cycle here. You bring in a new coach with a new play caller, and they get a lot out of this quarterback, far more than he would have delivered in seasons past, from like a conversion rate on third downs, from just an efficiency perspective in general. They were so efficient down inside the red zone, ran in a lot of touchdowns as opposed to throwing them. But nevertheless, because they had such good coaches working with Jones, he looked a lot better and they got paid a lot more. And now the coaches have to deal with being hamstrung a little bit because the quarterback is no longer on a rookie deal and very cheap. So I think Jones is slightly below average, in my opinion, as an NFL starter. But I think his rushing ability on the ground is what gives him a higher floor from a fantasy perspective. But I'm certainly not really in love with the prospects of Daniel Jones being my QB1. I think he's got a lot of room to grow. I love what the Giants are doing from a weapons perspective around him, and the fact that Dable and Shane can now get their fingers into the pie a little bit deeper and meld this team and mold them and bring in players to support that they want to use, as opposed to the Dave Gettleman scraps that they've been left with. But this team is due for a little bit of regression.
From a betting standpoint, and I remember last year reading some of your stuff, and I read your stuff all the time and love it. You were in on a play that I enjoyed a lot as well, the longest rushing yard by a player. I thought that many of the books were very underpriced in that number. Is that another thing you'll look back at this year? Is there a different, quote-unquote, sneaky play that maybe you're looking at paying attention to?
Yeah, we had a very good year betting props last season, and those were some of my favorite props to bet. Longest rushing attempt by various different players. On occasion, I'll delve into like the longest completion from a quarterback or longest reception from a receiver. A lot of what I look at is like player specific, but then also game plan driven. And so I'm really studying what I think the coaches are going to call in specific games and what the weaknesses are for certain defenses. And one of the things I write about in the foreword of my book is just how we've made an investment into the infrastructure and what we're doing, our process at Sharp Football Analysis. And we're spending a lot more money now on better data than we had in the prior years. And that better data really has shown dividends last season in terms of finding better props to bet. And we're going to continue to expand that this upcoming season. We don't do as much forward facing and sharing the data publicly because we can't, because we're paying such a high price tag to have, proprietary access to some of this stuff. But we certainly are using it ourselves and factoring into the prop market and the betting market. We really are trying to leave no stone unturned. So I could guarantee you we probably are going to find, especially early on in the season, some edges there to be had in the longest rushing attempt for certain running backs.
Warren, what's your outlook for the Jets this year? And you can run with it any way you want. I mean, they're the biggest storyline in the NFL going into it. They're going to be on Hard Knocks. We're going to all see it on HBO. They've got Aaron Rodgers at quarterback. We know how bad quarterback position play was a year ago with Flacco, White, and Zach Wilson. What's your take on what the Jets did? Pressure on Saleh to win this year. What's your overall take on the landscape of the Jets going into the 23 season?
Yeah, well, first of all, I don't think there's that much pressure on Saleh. I think this is just kind of like a nice, easy transition for him. This defense is going to look a lot better, and he's going to be happy about that because the offense is going to stay on the field more, and the offense is going to score more points. And when your offense is playing well and scoring points, life is easier for your defense. And too many defensive-minded coaches think that my defense will look better if I have them rest on the sidelines. So I need our offense to convert third downs and run the ball and stay on the field. The reality is your defense is going to look better when you're playing with a lead and you can pin your ears back and rush the opposing quarterback more frequently, and that other team is calling plays more predictably in the second half. And that's exactly what I anticipate. So Saleh is going to be happy this year. The issue is, what is their ceiling? And I do think that Aaron Rodgers provides a much higher floor than what Zach Wilson was contributing in years past. I mean, I was looking at the accuracy rates. I'm going to tweet out some stats actually this afternoon on completion rate of passes thrown into the end zone by quarterbacks last year. I mean, it's an absolute joke what Garrett Wilson was having to deal with the pass attempts from Zach Wilson. I think Aaron Rodgers provides a significantly higher ceiling from that respect. And this team is really in a good situation. The only thing bad about this team, I guess there's two things. Number one, their schedule of opponents is very difficult. There's nothing the NFL did to make it difficult, but that is a very tough schedule of opposing teams that they're going to play. And number two is just the fact that the betting market has really jacked up all the expectations for this team. So there's not really much value in going over the Jets on their win total or anything like that, in my opinion, this upcoming season. What they do have going for them, in addition to getting Aaron Rodgers and some other key players, simply the fact that the NFL gave them the easiest schedule in the league from a timing perspective. The NFL controls the timing. They gave them a ton of rest. They don't have to leave New York very frequently. Their road trips are much later in the season. They get to play a lot of games at home, a lot of primetime home games. Really, the league is trying to get the Jets into the postseason. They want the Jets to host a game in New York in the postseason to really help, when's the last time the Jets, a team from New York, has actually had a good quarterback, like a marquee quarterback? Hasn't happened. So this is in years, right? So this is really going to help elevate the league, and the league will make more money if the Jets are good. So they gave them an easier schedule as best they could from a timing perspective. I think some of the calls might end up going the Jets' way this year. I think the Jets are going to be a good team. I just don't see value in betting they're over because the market's so overinflated on them.
The 2023 football preview, the fantasy football draft kit, Christmas in July giveaway of so much going on, man. It's always great catching up. Thank you for stopping by on the show.
Warren, I just have one more for you. So somebody out there orders the book today, right? Are you getting a digital copy? Are you getting the physical copy? How long before they have it in their hands?
You get a digital copy and you get it immediately. Unfortunately, we are going to be doing some printed book giveaways to everybody who's bought the digital copy, but every person is not going to get that. Just select people. The digital copy, it's delivered to you right now. You can start digging into 532 pages worth of analysis, a chapter for every single team, and you can do that the very moment that you check out from the store.
Beautiful. Awesome. Warren, you're great, man. Continued success, and thanks for spending some time with us. And football season's here, so it's a glorious time of year.
Thanks for having me, guys.
You got it. Warren Sharp Football, and check him out all over the place. I mean, he's just, there's no spot that, and honestly, it's a very detailed analysis, and he gets into it, and he's got a lot of great people that work with him, and you are, I would say, I mean, it's entertaining, but you're fun. You're a smarter football fan after going through.
Oh, yeah.
No question.
Yep. He's one of the guys I always read.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll come back. Big news in the NBA. Breaking news in the NBA. We'll give you that news, and it's a lot of money. I'll tell you that. That's going to a certain player. He's Keith Irizarry. I'm Marc Malusis. We'll get into that. We've got some real-time sports picks to give out as well. We'll do that as well. It's Moose and Keith with you on a Tuesday right here, Better Sports Network.
So let's get into some best ball philosophy here.
Yeah.
In your experience, going back many, many, many years, drafting in national tournaments, Bradley, have you historically been shying away from the running back position in favor of wide receivers? In favor of, if you're drafting in the FFPC, tight end premium format, in favor of tight ends as well. Is that the smart play when you're drafting this early in the drafting season?
Yeah, so taking value is going to be huge, and looking at like running backs and wide receivers, like you want to take a look at how the structure is. So you mentioned earlier the FFPC has a couple different types, like they've got super flex and one quarterback, and so that's going to change your strategy a little bit if you have only 2 wide receivers or if you're drafting 3 wide receivers. And of course, the PPR is a different aspect compared to other formats or other tournaments. And so keeping in mind the pass catching upside of some of the running backs may be more valuable in those formats. So the Austin Ecklers, the Christian McCaffreys may be more value because they get more receptions, and so like I loved taking late shots a couple of years ago on like the JD McKissicks of the world, who would get 50 receptions really cheaply. So that's something to consider. But when it comes to like overall value, like you're drafting, you're in the middle of a draft, and you just noticed that, I don't know, maybe it's Chris Godwin has fallen 14 spots, but Chris Godwin was not in your plans to be drafting. Like maybe you don't have a strong player take on Chris Godwin, or my take is that I don't think the Bucs are going to be particularly good this year. But for him to be dropping, let's say 14 spots is more than a full round. And based on the data that we've seen, if you get to draft a player more than 12 spots ahead or behind ADP, so they drop 12 or more spots, you have an 84% edge over the rest of the tournament players who are drafting this player, because typically this player isn't going to drop. The average draft position is a really strong indicator of where a player is going to go. And I think that is also on the flip side. If you are reaching too much, you're giving up value in your drafts. And so when it comes to value-based drafting, you need to consider, just because this guy isn't my plans or I don't have a strong player take on him, maybe that's your opportunity to sprinkle in some shares of this player at a good price.
All right, Moose and Keith with you here on this Tuesday, Better Sports Network, and teased it going into the break. And if you're worrying about Jaylen Brown getting paid, and we opened up the conversation, ironically enough, talking about Saquon Barkley making $10.1 million. Well, if you're athletically gifted enough and you're tall enough, go play in the NBA. And if you're good enough, Jaylen Brown just signed a 5-year, $304 million contract extension with the Boston Celtics. So he gets a Supermax deal. Jaylen Brown is going to be making $60 million a year.
I want to be Jaylen Brown.
Like $60 million. Remember we were having the conversation, it was about a year and a half ago. Ime Udoka was still the coach before he went through everything they went through, and Boston was struggling before they made their run to the NBA Finals, and there were conversations of whether or not Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum could play together and play well enough together. And we all understand how great Jason Tatum is as a player. We get that. Jaylen Brown comes in where, hopefully he's working on his handle because it was terrible in the playoffs. I mean, he was turning the basketball over left and right, and he was accountable after, the loss in the Eastern Conference Finals to the Miami Heat and nearly coming back from 3 games to none down. But Jaylen Brown, said he wanted to be in Boston. There were conversations about them maybe going to go get Dame Lillard from the Portland Trailblazers. Well, Jaylen Brown's now a Boston Celtic.
You got the numbers. Yeah.
5 years, $304 million. So in 2024, 2025, he's making $52 million. Thank you, Jessica Brand. 25, 26, he's making 56 and change. 26, 27, $60 million and change. 27, 28, 64, nearly $65 million. And in the last year of the deal, Jaylen Brown is making nearly $70 million. Think about that. Just think about that for a second. Jaylen Brown is going to in 28, 29 NBA season, and he'll probably play 70 games in the year, right?
Well, yeah, Kylian Mbappe just got offered crazy amounts of money from the Saudis, right? From that Saudi league.
Right. Kylian Mbappe might make $1 billion.
Right. And that's like a global type of thing. And then you've got, Jaylen Brown, who is, most people would say, not the best player on the Boston Celtics, correct?
No, he's not.
Right.
But timing is everything. Timing's everything.
Truly is.
That's it. Everyone, and there are other players in the NBA that are celebrating because, they're whoever the next man up. Good for God bless. That's amazing. Yeah. But think about, he's going to be basically, if he plays in 28, 29, say for argument, he plays 70 games, he's going to be making $1 million a game in the regular season.
Awesome.
It's insane.
It's awesome.
It's crazy. God
really
bless.
Cool.
$70 million. $70 million. Here's the learning lesson. If you're athletically gifted enough,
be tall.
And you're tall enough, go play basketball.
All right. So I don't think biologically or whatever, science of this works. But so if you're not tall, get a pull-up bar and just keep hanging from it. It'll elongate your body. It'll make you grow, won't it?
No, it won't.
That wives' tale. That's an old wives' tale. That doesn't work.
No, but there are parents. You've heard the people that give their kids the HGH.
Yeah.
They want their kids to be 6'3", 6'4". They find a doctor. They get HGH. They start getting injections early on when they're young, so they're tall and they're not small. Even if they don't come from tall parents, athletic, whatever it might be. But that's a thing that does go on now.
It didn't work for me. I'm only 5'10".
Yeah. Well,
I did not do that.
No, I did not do HGH.
I don't even think that wouldn't have been a thing when we were kids.
That was not a thing.
That
was not a thing. Now it is a thing. But yeah, good on Jaylen Brown. He signed a 5-year, $304 million extension with the Boston Celtics, a Supermax deal.
All right, let's make some picks. All right, so each and every week, what we're going to do is with Real Time Sports, RT Sports, we're going to do some segments here where we do a little pick 'em. Last week we did it. You can pick 2. You could pick 3, 4, 5, 6. You can go on and on and on. You go to rtsports.com/alarm. Also, by the way, there's a promo going on right now that if you put in the promo code ALARM23, they will match 100% of what you're putting in there up to $200. So that's obviously a cool thing there. We're going to set our lineups and we are going to give you the player props. And if you hit them, you win. Also, by the way, so 2 correct picks means 3 times your entry, 3 correct picks 6 times, 4 correct picks 10 times. You can get it going there. We got it on the screen for you there. Did you have a baseball play that was catching your eye today that maybe you wanted to look at?
I'm focusing on Mets Yankees.
Okay, go ahead.
All right, so I would say Verlander more than 6 strikeouts.
Okay. Go ahead. Why?
All right. Okay. So a couple of reasons. Now, I know Verlander's been hit and miss. He's coming off a positive start. Yankee lineup's terrible. And they're prone to the swings and misses. And I know Anthony Rizzo finally hit a home run for the first time since May the 20th. It was a Yankee Stadium wall scraping home run on Sunday as they swept away, one of the god-awful teams in Major League Baseball, which is the Kansas City Royals. But Yankees finally got back to winning ways. I just look at the matchup. I would go Verlander more than 6 strikeouts.
Yeah, and I think it's perfectly priced here at 6. Most books, from a betting standpoint, are having this at 6.5. I don't love the over in that one. It's a stay away for me, but 6 strikeouts for Verlander, which is something he's done 2 consecutive starts and 3 of his last 4 starts as well. So it looks like they're also not afraid to let him go 6 innings, which again, from a betting standpoint, a lot of times, most of your props, you'll see it'll be the over 17.5 outs, which means you got to get the 18 outs, get to the 6th inning, get your 6 complete innings. So I'm cool with that one. I like that. I'll give you a pitcher as well. I'm going to double back to a little bit of an earlier game of the day. Let's go to the Angels and the Tigers. And Eduardo Rodriguez may or may not be auditioning for other teams. From a betting standpoint, I saw this on some of the other apps as well. I like the over 5.5 strikeouts, which then helps me here. I will land on the 6 strikeouts. I'll take the more there. 7 strikeouts in 3 consecutive games, 7 or more strikeouts in 4 of his last 5 games. And then you look at the team that he's squaring off against in the Angels. Season-wise, 10th highest K percentage in baseball, the 9th most Ks per game as well. But then if you want to go just since the All-Star break, so you've got the 3 weeks of sample size here since the All-Star break, a 32% K rate against lefties, the Angels. So 6 strikeouts seems very attainable to me.
Oh, like that. All right, so let's go to Baltimore and Philly. Gibson, Walker are your starters tonight. Kyle Gibson and Taijuan Walker for Philadelphia. 6:40 first pitch. I'm going to go to Kyle Schwarber. Philly's home. Half a total run. I think Kyle Schwarber scores. I'm going to go more than half a run. So Kyle Schwarber over half a run tonight for the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yeah, I like that. That's not a bad one. That game scares me a little bit. I'm not really sure what to make of it. Gibson hasn't been as great in the second half of the season. Taijuan Walker actually has been very good. I picked Baltimore to win yesterday. Love that. Love what the Baltimore Orioles are doing. Took them on the money line, and we got that. I would look at, for me, I'll go to Colorado and Washington. And while it didn't work for me yesterday on Better's Eye, I'm going to turn back to Lane Thomas, who has very quietly been one of the best just hitters in baseball. He puts together night in, night out days. The over 1.5 total bases is something I love with Lane Thomas. So with that, I think there's a direct correlation. I think you could look at the 6 fantasy points or the total runs here. I think either one is fine. I actually might play them both. I actually think that might not be a bad idea. Maybe you just play them both. You play Lane Thomas to get 6 fantasy points against Austin Gomber, who gives up home runs to you, Moose. You will hit a home run off him if you bat it against him tonight. And then I'll take the total runs as well for Thomas.
All right, like that. I got one more for you.
Okay.
And I'm going to the Cubs and White Sox game. It is in Chicago. The White Sox are home. 8:10 first pitch. Andrew Benintendi. I'm going to go over 1.5 total bases for Andrew Benintendi tonight against the Chicago Cubs.
Okay, I'll stay in that game. Let's sneak one more in that game then. Career numbers against Kyle Hendricks. Lou Bob, as I call him, Luis Robert, is 3 for 6 in his career. So on Better's Eye, I already sent this over to our producers over there. I'm looking at the over 1.5 total bases at plus 110. I'm also looking at the over 1.5 hits, runs, and RBI, the combination platter there at minus 145. So I think fantasy points work here. Total runs work here as well.
Like that. There you have it. That's all I got. You have another one for us?
Nah, I'm good there. The board, I have a few more that I'm looking at for Better's Eye that actually are not on this board here. I will tell you, just other baseball plays I'm looking at. I'm looking at Andrew Abbott strikeouts. I'm looking at Manny Machado today. And then whenever we find out exactly who's pitching for the Texas Rangers, Kyle Tucker may end up being my play of the day. 10-game hitting streak, 2 or more bases, 6 of his last 10. And on the hits, runs, RBI prop, he's got over 1.5 of that. 7 of his last 10 games.
So what we just ran through was the real-time sports pick'em. Play the real-time sports daily pick'em contest. Set a lineup of player props. Hit them all and win. Baseball, golf, and more. We went through tonight's MLB slate. 2 correct picks wins 3 times your entry. 3 correct picks wins 6 times. 4 correct picks 10 times. 520. 6 correct picks means 40 times. Go to rtsports.com/alarm. First-time depositors get 100% instant match up to $200 with deposit code ALARM23. Remember to play responsibly. Please call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Awesome. All right, let's take one more break. When we get back, Heather Klein is producing today's show, and she has some stories for us. We're going to hit up the Moose and Keith BS detector. I think it is Heather's first time to hear this. Oh, my God. Did that work? Here we go. Yeah!
Oh. It's like time for Keith to go get some batteries.
I know. No, you know what it was? I lowered the volume all the way to the, there you go. That was really
no,
loud.
you got to go full blast.
No. I don't want to blow out your ears, all right? No. You're a nice guy. You want to be able to hear through your...
Am I a nice guy? I don't know.
You're a good enough guy.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You have nice hair, okay? You have nice hair.
Yeah.
All right, we'll be back. We'll wrap up the
Going
show with a little
gray,
BS
too
detector.
gray. Too
That's
many nerves.
fine.
Yeah.
Distinguished.
Thank you.
I don't have any of it, okay?
No.
Be right back. It's Moose and Keith, Better Sports Network.
I feel like this is a quietly contentious point in Dynasty Fantasy Football, what it means to actually be rebuilding. Some people say you should never truly be rebuilding. How do you view the rebuilding versus competing dichotomy in Dynasty?
So I will be the first person to acknowledge that my preferred format of fantasy football is just redraft. The years that I have played Dynasty, it has been, I've drafted a win now team because I've seen people that have just gotten into the cycle of rebuilding and thus they just don't make any progress. So if you're rebuilding for the 5th year in a row, I just, I don't know exactly how you get out of it, but yeah, it's definitely something that can happen. And a lot of people, especially when we come out of the NFL draft, everyone's just instantly shipping off, draft picks and everything. So, I mean, it's definitely something that can happen.
Joey, do you feel similarly to it? Do you feel like you see people getting stuck in the rebuilding loop?
I mean, I would say people that try to rebuild in the beginning of seasons, of their fantasy seasons, I see them get stuck in that rut. I would really try to only ever rebuild if I knew I was going to miss the playoffs. Like, I'm always trying to play to win, even if it's maybe I don't know.
I think my big thing is the word rebuild is a much shorter time frame than I think most people say it should be. Like, they look at rebuild as like 3 years out competing. Rebuild, you're looking to compete next season. You know what I mean? Like, if you're doing it now, you're looking to revamp, and maybe there's a 1 season where you ship it off, but that very next season you should be competing. If you're doing it like that, I'm cool with it, but you gotta have a plan, not just keep getting the young players, keep getting the draft picks. Otherwise, you end up like Tim. Maybe not like Tim who gets a bye, but you make the playoffs, you're in that like 4 to 6 range every year, just hovering in the middle. Nothing ever gets better, nothing ever gets worse.
I think I play like you in Dynasty, Simon. I play in 3-year windows.
100%. That's my go-to. And with the rate at which Dynasty leagues turn over, you should really only ever play in a 3-year window.
Oh, love the vibe. Moose and Keith with you here on this Tuesday, Better Sports Network. Our producer today, Heather, is going to hop on mic. We're going to play a little BS detector. Are we not, Keith?
Yes, we are going to do BS detector. Yes,
that's exactly right. So Heather is filling in for Brian Burns this week. Brian had some.
That is not BS.
Issues.
It's true.
No, that is right. Brian texted us this morning. Comcast, no Wi-Fi.
He didn't pay his bill. No. He didn't pay.
No, he didn't. No, there's Wi-Fi issues all over.
You don't want. Let's just no. It's much. How about this? Is it BS or is it true? Did he pay his bill or not? What do we think?
I hope he paid his bill. I think he paid his bill.
Heather, let's bring you on microphone right now. Heather, do you think that Burnsy just forgot to pay his Comcast bill and that's why he doesn't have internet?
I do want to take the hot take, but I will say he's currently watching your show right now.
Yeah,
so
it's fine.
he-
It's fine. Yeah.
So I think he does have some form of capabilities. I think he pays his bill. I think he's a responsible young man.
Fair enough. I think he didn't pay his bill. He actually asked Moose to pay it. Moose didn't get the message.
I have no money. I have no money.
Moose is like, I got 3 kids. Leave me alone.
Listen, I was thinking about this during the break after we had Sharp on because I want to order his book, right? Do you think both of you, Heather, I'll get your opinion too, Keith, your opinion is this. I need a physical copy of the book. Like the digital doesn't work because I want to read it when I'm on the beach next week down on the Jersey Shore. And I can't bring like an iPad or something on the beach. So would it be too much to ask Warren if I could get a physical copy of the book?
No, I think you can. And if he says yes to you, then say, oh, that's so awesome. Do you want to send one to Keith too? No, but worry about yourself first.
Well, I'm going to pay for it.
I'm not asking you to get it for free. I agree. No, I'm with you too. I would rather have the physical book as well.
Heather, do you think that would be too much to ask Warren?
No, not at all. I like paper. I like being able to have it in my hands. I like to be able to go flip back and forth. But the only downside to that is you won't get the most updated. Well, it's bulky, but you won't get the most updated information.
Well, that's true.
With ebooks, you get instant or as quick as possible the updates. You don't have that with the hard copy.
No, I get that. That's fair. I can't.
All right, you swung me on digital. I'm in on digital now.
Well, is he constantly updating? He's updating it throughout the time.
Yes, they're updating it as much as possible when news breaks. So that's the benefits of the ebook.
Gotcha. That's what's concerned with the ebook.
Because you take it back to like really old school when you buy the fantasy magazines and
right.
No, I get that, but I'm just thinking about the time I have. When will I have some time to be able to sit down and do it? It's probably when I'm on the beach. It's not going to be. When I'm home, there's no time.
Do you have a Nook or a Nook or an e-reader of any sort?
Let's see. I have the Remarkable. Could I download it for Remarkable?
Can't you just take one of your boys' iPads?
No, there's no iPads. iPads are not making the trip.
Okay.
Because they're like fiends.
Yeah.
We can't. Their iPads cannot be anywhere in the vicinity.
And I'm envisioning you on a cell phone.
I'm like
on the
I'm
beach.
like this. I'm like
right.
I'm like, wait, what? I forgot my glasses. I can't
see. Single font fills out the entire screen.
That's exactly right. No, it's a fair point about. You're right. Maybe I should get a Nook or an e-reader because you can download it to that, right?
Yes,
I believe so.
Yes.
I believe. Yeah, most things nowadays you can go to the e-readers or the Fire, whatever.
Yeah, I have to evolve. I still need Keith. The other thing I wanted to ask you today, I was going to do it off the air. Why not do it on the air? Is I need you to help me set up a calendar for Madonna and I.
You still haven't done the calendar?
No, I've tried, Keith. I've done tutorials on YouTube. I've gone through all that. I've followed the proper steps. I've done all that. I can't set up the family calendar. Like I've done it. I've tried to set it up 5 or 6 times. It doesn't work.
Heather, talk to him.
I'm hearing it. I love that you went to the tutorials as well.
I watched it. My sons are yelling, "What are you watching?" I'm like, I'm trying to set up a family calendar. I'm trying to set up a calendar. It won't work.
Why? I don't.
Go
to calendars.
It doesn't work, Keith. You make it seem so easy. It doesn't work.
Add calendar.
It doesn't work. I'm telling you. For some reason, it does not work.
And you guys are both iPhone, right?
Yes.
And you both have Gmails, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know why that wouldn't work, man.
Well, I'm gonna call you.
Are you sure that he's not trying to block you from it?
No.
She's like, she's not interested.
Trust me, it gets thrown in my face constantly about the calendar.
Maybe you can share your screen with Keith on your Gmail, and maybe he can see what you're doing and maybe to help that way.
Well, the funny thing is, it's been so long since I've set one up. Now I'm like, wait, did they change something? Like now I feel like I need to go in and look in my settings.
Now I have to watch a tutorial on how to share a screen.
Yeah, see, we can't do that. Yeah.
All right, I'm doing too much. Doing too
No,
much.
I'm all
Yeah,
good.
Heather,
I'm all good.
seriously.
I just know sports.
You've
That's
gone
all
too,
I
you've
know.
gone too far.
That's it.
Heather, you also all
Heather, all right, let's get to it. What's storyline number 1 for BS Detector?
Brittany Mahomes, wife of Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes, says that she will try out to be a Kansas City cheerleader this season. Yes or no?
You go first, Keith.
I'm going to say that is BS. I do not believe that is a real story. I think that it's a fun story. It would be interesting. And I'm sure Patrick Mahomes would maybe like it. I say it's not a real story.
I don't think it's a real story either. I think, but I mean, it would be amazing. It would be great content. It'd be, to see that to be absolutely true. Correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't they having a baby? Isn't she pregnant or no? Am I mistaken on that?
I think they already
had one. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, baby girl. I
Okay,
believe.
so I'm going to say that's
one coming, right?
Oh, there you go. Thank you. I thought I read that.
With the second, yes.
Yes. So I'm going to say that is not true.
That is correct. It is BS.
All right, beautiful.
Yes. All right, we're winners. We're winners.
Winning. Dalvin Cook says he has not received any offers for any teams and that it would be exciting to join his brother in Buffalo. BS or no?
You go first.
I'm going to say that is I'm going to say that's BS. I think Dalvin Cook has gotten some sort of an offer from a team. It just hasn't been what he is looking for. So therefore, I'm going to say that is not true.
I am going to say that is a real headline and story, that he has not gotten any official offers yet, and he would like to play with his brother in Buffalo.
You are correct, Keith.
Ah, there you go. Very good.
He said that it's not out of the picture for him to sign with the Bills, which could pair him with his brother James, but doesn't want to be the one being in his way, basically to stop his shine.
Beautiful.
It's a respectable thing to say.
Like that. All right, number 3.
With the news of Saquon Barkley signing a deal with the New York Giants, Las Vegas Raiders running back Josh Jacobs says that he will sign with the Raiders today with a deal of equal or greater value. BS or no?
Feels like BS to me.
I think that's BS.
Yeah,
I think he walked away from the negotiating table. He's not signing that. He's not. No, I think that's BS.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'll lock in my answer. BS.
There's your horn.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah.
My bad.
Yeah. In leaving in the airport, right? He was seen leaving Las Vegas on plane. So that's not factual.
There you go. Very nice. All right. Keith's 3 for 3. I'm 2 for 3.
Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes says that the Chiefs are at the beginning of a dynasty. BS or no?
The wording is weird there.
The beginning
of a dynasty. He's already won 2 titles, right?
Well, how do you define a dynasty? How many titles?
I mean, I think you have multiple championships, and for a stretch of 5, 6, 7 years, you're consistently in championship.
Well, you have to win.
Contention.
How many in a row do you have to win? Like, when I think of a dynasty, you have to win.
I think you got to win 2 in a row, right? And at some point, maybe like a 3 out of 5 type of thing.
Yeah, I think you and I are probably in the same parameters. I think that's probably right.
So then he probably did say that. Yeah. You know what? I'll say that is true. He did say that he is at the beginning of a dynasty.
Yeah, I would say that is true as well.
Guys are correct.
All right. We're on point today.
He said you guys are rocking and rolling. He said we're at the beginning of one. I think in dynasties, I always say you got to win 3. And our job is to do whatever we can to win as many as we can and not have any regrets when we step off the field.
Beautiful.
So he's in the mentality that they're going to look at that they're in hopes that they become a dynasty.
Okay, beautiful.
Love it.
All right.
How many more stories do you have for us?
That's actually the last one.
Oh, beautiful.
That feels like BS. That's not the last one. No, I'm just kidding.
You just wanted to play the horn. But I do want to say
I
something
did.
that's not BS. Moose, your hair is amazing.
Oh,
I
thank
agree.
The
you.
silver fox here. So
Whoa.
I appreciate that. Thank you,
big
Heather.
fan of your hair.
Thank you, Heather. I appreciate it.
You're
I
welcome.
appreciate it.
Heather, you're awesome. Thank you for everything today. You nailed it. I know you stepped in for Bernsey.
Great job. Thank
this
you.
morning. You nailed it.
Well, Brian set me up for an easy job. You guys are awesome too. So thank you very much.
Let's do a get to know Heather. So, all right. So, where are you from?
I'm raised in Virginia, but my dad was in the military, so I was born in Panama.
Oh,
Wow.
okay. You were born in Panama, raised in Virginia.
Yes.
How long have you been in the communications industry?
Off and on since 2009.
Okay.
Nice. And who is your favorite host of Moose and Keith?
That is the ultimate setup. Where is my BS?
Yeah, right. Exactly right. That's exactly right.
You both equally pleasing.
Oh, thank you, Heather. What is your what is your dream job? What would you love to be doing?
Not place, but like position.
I wouldn't mind being on the air, but not doing necessarily all sports like you guys do. You guys do such a great job. I love to hear voice and stories. So I would love to tell the stories of important moments in history. So something like that would be a lot of fun. Storytelling.
Gotcha. Voiceover work, because you have a great voice, Heather. What have you done a ton of voiceover work?
I've done some. I did a lot of work for SiriusXM in the past. Would love to do more. And I've done some work for the channel or for the network as well.
Yes.
So I enjoy doing it and would love more exposure with that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's there. So there's no doubt about it. You have a great
The Athletic actually just put out a storytelling. It's The King's Reign. It is, I believe, either 6 or 7 episodes, podcast version of LeBron James' story from being in 8th grade and relatively unknown to freshman year, All-American, to junior and senior year, the number one player in America, and then through his NBA career. So I'm almost done with episode 1. I was listening yesterday.
That's cool. My boys we've been watching Quarterback on Netflix, which got picked up.
So that's watchable with the boys?
Yeah, for the most part.
Okay. I wasn't sure if that was a kid-friendly one. That's good enough.
Yeah, Gregory started watching it. My youngest. Cousins comes across really well in it. I was talking to a buddy of mine that works for the Mannings over at Omaha that used to work over at SNY, and then he worked at Fox, Sam Pepper, and he wouldn't tell me who's going to be part of season 2, but it got picked up for season 2. It's still in the works, still conversations. It's a really good show. It's something different that we haven't seen before, and it's really cool. And it shows you the amount of effort. I mean, for Cousins to get on the field last year, I mean, the amount of time that he spent to get his body physically and mentally right to go play football was just utterly amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah, all right. That's on my list. Jody and I just binged the 2 seasons of White Lotus.
Yeah, great show.
That was really good. I was like shocked at how good it was.
Yeah, that's a very, very good show on HBO. I like the first season better than the second, but yes, very good.
I would agree. First season was better than the second one.
Yeah. Keith, it's been a blast. Thanks to everybody. Heather, great job. We really appreciate it. Thanks to everybody, Jessica and everyone in our chat session this morning, to our guest, Alan and Warren, for joining us earlier on the program. And next week at this time, we'll be back together once again. Have a great Tuesday, everybody.
And baseball trade deadline will be gone already. We'll know if Shohei's an angel.
We're out. See you next week.